So I was in London a month ago, and halfway through the trip my gimbal stopped working. I went to go turn it on and it would light up, but the motors were completely dead. It was so inconvenient because I was getting ready to shoot a short film of mine, and the warranty was done, so Zhiyun couldn't do anything about it. Long story short, I searched online for a new one and found the Mosly Air. The specs actually looked really promising, so I contacted them and they shipped one out to me to see if I would like it. A week went by, I didn't really use it much, and then I actually ended up getting contacted by Lewis Howes, and I needed to fly out to New York City immediately to film him for 10 days. Here's the perfect test. Let's see how it did. Before we get into it, I just want to say that I am not a tech reviewer. I don't know the terminology. I don't know the science behind how everything works. I just know that it works. And I'm a cinematographer and filmmaker, and these reviews that I do are just from my experience using the equipment in the field, whether it's for this channel or paid projects. So just my experience, just my opinion. Wanted to let you know before we dive into it. With that being said, I am primarily a run and gun type shooter. I just came back from New York City with Lewis Howes, as you know, and that was the run and gun ultimate test. We were on the go for 11 days straight and with very, very little rest. I needed to make sure that the gimbal that I used, which was the Mosly Air, I needed to make sure this thing was robust, it could handle abuse. When I turned it on, it would be level and work properly every time. I shoot in only primes, and I have 3 of them. I have a 18, 28, and a 55. And so I'm changing out lenses a handful of times, not a ton, but enough where I need to make sure this can handle the abuse, because when I would change out a lens, it wouldn't be stabilized properly before I turned it on. And I needed to stabilize it quickly, so it wasn't perfect. And so when you don't stabilize these gimbals perfectly and you turn them on, it puts extra stress on the motors. And the least stabilized it is, the more work the motors have to do. I hope that makes sense. Yes, I would switch out lenses. I would stabilize it the best I can with the time that I had, which wasn't a lot, and it handled it. This thing was rock solid for the most part. It has some quirks, and so does the Zhiyun crane. Every gimbal has quirks, and it's all kind of part of it, because these things aren't perfect, but I think this is pretty close to that. And I want to use this time to explain why. I was a big fan of the Zhiyun crane. I think this is the best gimbal you can buy in 2017 for run and gun type shooting. So a couple of the quirks that I had to deal with in New York City was when I would turn it on, I'm like, for example, we took a lot of cabs, a lot of Ubers, and they were, you know, they're crazy drivers in New York City. So whenever I would turn this thing on in a cab or whatever, sometimes it wouldn't be perfectly stable and level when it was turned on. Sometimes it would be like on an angle, and then slowly but surely it would level out. And this would happen, especially in the cabs, sometimes walking fast. It was only when I placed it on a flat surface was when it leveled perfectly, like every single time. Which kind of makes sense, but when you're out and about, that can be kind of annoying. All I would do is turn it off and then turn it back on, and boom, it would be level. So not a big deal. That only happened maybe a handful of times, maybe once, twice a day. Sometimes this thing would just shut off, not the actual gimbal, but the motors would just shut off. And I don't know why that was. I think it was because maybe there was just too much pressure on the motors, and so to save the motors, they just kind of shut off, something like that. I don't know. That happened a handful of times throughout the trip. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So not many, but anyways, before I used this gimbal, I had the Zhiyun crane, and as you know, it broke. This is the first one, and it actually broke in London when I really needed it, and so I had to go out and buy a new gimbal. So I bought the Zhiyun crane version 2, and that was also a great test for run and gun shooting with the gimbal. And I had about a week with that gimbal using it. So I don't have it with me, but it was a great experience. And it's also a great gimbal. But there are things that I liked about it, things that I didn't like about it, that make the Mosly Air, in my opinion, better. At the end of the day, you cannot go wrong with either one. The Zhiyun crane version 2 and the Mosly Air are both great gimbals. I just think the Mosly Air is better for running and gunning and the style of shooting that I do. So let's go over really quick why. So the most important aspect, the most important thing, and it initially caught my interest, is the payload. The Zhiyun crane can hold up to 3.9 pounds, I believe. But this one can hold up to 5.5 pounds. You're basically going from only mirrorless cameras to now opening the door to like a Canon 5D Mark IV. So now you can hold DSLRs, you can hold heavier lenses, and you're not as restricted. And for the same, pretty much the same price, to have that extra 1.5 pounds makes a big difference. The Mosly Air comes with better packaging. The packaging looks nicer, you get a bigger box, you get more for the price. This thing comes with the handles, and the Zhiyun crane does not. That's an extra charge. I don't use the handles for run and gun shooting. I would only use those for like a wedding or something like that. It does make it easier to hold. It kind of takes off the pressure. It also kind of smooths out your shots a little bit more. Kind of dampens the vibrations a little bit just from when I used it. But for run and gun type shooting, you're not going to use the two handles. You're simply just going to use the one and the tripod mount at the bottom. And speaking of the tripod mount, this thing is awesome. I don't know why it took so long for gimbals to include this. This is huge. The Zhiyun crane does not come with that, unfortunately. I don't know why, but it doesn't. This came in handy big time because, especially for switching out lenses, I didn't have to take the camera off the gimbal. I could just keep the camera on the gimbal, switch lenses, stabilize it really quick, turn it on, boom, go. The quality of this thing is just as good as the Zhiyun, and it might even be a little bit better. Let's talk battery life. Battery life on this is not as good. It comes with 3 batteries, and you need all 3 batteries to power this thing. With the Zhiyun, it comes with 2 sets of batteries, and you get 12 hours of battery life. This is like 8 hours of battery life. And what ended up happening in New York, I ran out of battery towards the end of the night. Like every single night I ran out of battery. That's how much I used this thing. So what I ended up doing was I brought my battery pack. I would bring the charger for the batteries and plug it into this guy whenever we just ate or had maybe 30 minutes or an hour or whatever of not shooting, I would charge the batteries while we weren't doing anything. But I do like the charger of this much better. It actually comes with the USB cord attached to the charger itself, and it just wraps up on the bottom, which is really nice. And so I just brought that, I brought this, plugged it in, boom. Not the worst thing in the world. Out of the box, flipping it on out of the box, the Zhiyun crane just works. You don't even need to calibrate it, stabilize it. It just stick a camera on there, turn it on, and it's gonna work. This will not work that well out of the box. You need to calibrate it and go through the steps that it tells you to get the most out of this gimbal. Each gimbal kind of has a different feel when panning it and turning it in any direction, really. It's just got a different feel. I don't know why, but with the app on the Mosly Air, it's set up better, and it's got a much easier layout. I feel like you can change the settings of how slow you want the pan to go. With the Zhiyun, it was a lot more tricky. It was not very user-friendly. I think they did an update, but I just did not like it. I thought it was crap. I think everyone else thought it was crap too. Both of them, again, they work the same. They're great. I just like the feel a little bit better on this gimbal. And then obviously price. This is $599. It's just under 600 bucks. Not really, it's 600 bucks. And the Zhiyun version 2, I think it was 650, and I think they dropped the price, or maybe it was 600 too. I'm not really sure, but I know it's 550 now, and that's because the Zhiyun Crane 2, not version 2, but 2, super confusing, is out now, and that's 750 in a much beastlier package. I think this is worth the extra 50 bucks if you're trying to decide whether or not to go with one of these two. And you know, when you're spending close to $600, 50 bucks is not really that big of a deal. And speaking of the Zhiyun Crane 2, it's just a different gimbal than these two. You can't really compare it. It's much more expensive, it's bigger, can handle a much bigger payload, and honestly, I don't know if I would want to buy it for running and gunning. Yes, I'm sure it's a better gimbal, and I hope it is given the price point, but when you're carrying this thing all day long, I don't know if I want something heavier, you know? This is close to 3 pounds, maybe? I can't remember. Plus, throw a camera on there, depending on your camera and your lens, it's gonna be 7 pounds already or something like that. And holding this thing for multiple hours on end, whether it's for a wedding or following Lewis Howes around or whatever. Luckily I can, and I've always done this, I just kind of sit this thing on my waist or like kind of prop it on my belt and just kind of chill with it there, and that helps a lot. But your forearms are gonna just start getting jacked, I'm telling you right now. So I don't know if I'd want the Zhiyun Crane 2 for this kind of work and for a vlog for my channel, or a YouTuber who's just vlogging and using it to get cinematic shots. I don't think the Zhiyun Crane 2 is really the gimbal of choice. But then again, I've never used it, I've never held it, I don't truly know. That's just from looking at the specs online and just seeing it. It's a lot heftier, it's thicker, it's bigger. Yeah, that's just something to think about, and maybe, hopefully one day I will get my hands on the Zhiyun Crane 2, and I will let you know my thoughts, because my mind could change. I hope that helps a little bit. I'm gonna rock the Mosly Air. My Zhiyun Crane is broken, and the Zhiyun Crane version 2 that I use in London, I sold to a buddy of mine. So this is my gimbal of choice for now. Hopefully it'll last more than a year. And if you are interested in this gimbal, all the information is in the description box. Hope this has been helpful. If you guys like these, please let me know in the comment section below. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Catch you guys in the next one. Later. Oh God. Oh, that was bad. Is it still working? Oh shoot. Okay. Shit.
Work so fucking much, my greatest fear is I'ma die alone. Every diamond in my chain, yeah, that's a milestone. I'm loving it. Calling me, asking me for money, man. The only thing I'ma give you motherfuckers is a dial tone.